Emotionally Unavailable.
Welcome to Emotionally Unavailable, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of emotional availability and intimacy. I'm your host, Melissa Hepner, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have you join me on this journey of self-discovery and connection. Whether you're navigating the complexities of relationships or exploring your own emotional landscape, this podcast is here to inspire, empower, and entertain. So get cozy and let's explore the depths of human emotions together. Hello, little lovelies. Happy Monday. Today's episode is with Alan Lazarus. At the age of 2, Alan's father passed away in a car accident, and at age 26, did I say at age 2? That is what I meant, but in my head I said 22. But anyway, at age 26, Alan had his own nearly fatal car accident and started questioning everything he was doing in life. Filled with pain, regret, and confusion, he searched for answers and finally found what he'd been missing all that time: holistic self-improvement. So today, Alan's grateful to lead a global team of 16 individuals as the founder and CEO of Next Level University, a global top 100 holistic self-improvement podcast with over 1 million listens in more than 175 countries. As a coach, trainer, and podcaster, Alan believes in a heart-driven but no BS approach to achieving both external success and internal fulfillment, and he's excited to help you and your community get to the next level of your life, love, health, and wealth. That was obviously off of Alan's profile, but anyway, I'm going to make this intro short because I am recording it after completing the half marathon today. I just walked it. Not that I'm going to take anything away from that accomplishment, but I do not want to pretend I ran a fucking ounce of that, but that wasn't the plan. I wanted to participate, but I don't love long distance running anymore, so we walked it, had a great time. Did run into some snags that I guess I probably just will skip, and Bella's whining in the background, so anyway, I had a good conversation with Alan. I'm just feeling a little bit sick from allergies and all the things today, and now Bella's barking. So anyway, enjoy this conversation with me and Alan.
Hey, I'm Justine Rhodes, host of Mentally a Badass, the podcast where we have the kind of conversation most people are too scared to have. We talk about mental health, identity, healing, and what it means to actually take care of yourself without the fluff. Our guests share stories that are wild, raw, sometimes hilarious, and sometimes heartbreakingly real. We dive into the stuff no one wants to say out loud: grief, trauma, shame, and even the awkward things like feeling like you're too much or not enough. But we don't just sit in the heavy. Every episode leaves you with something useful, real, actionable advice to help you move through your own stuff. If you're tired of surface level talk and ready for something deeper, check out Mentally a Badass wherever you get your podcast.
Hello.
Hey, I'm here. Okay, awesome. I'm in the right place. I was like, are we doing Zoom? Or are we doing... Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I should be able to switch cameras here. Hold on. Hey, I'm so sorry I'm late. Holy crap.
No, that's fine. I'm usually late too.
All right, I appreciate you very much. I'm overwhelmed as hell, but in the best way. So.
No, I totally feel you. And no worries.
Okay, one sec. My camera's all green on me. If you look, my camera is all... Oh, there we go. Okay, cool.
You're back.
We're back. Do you do audio and video, or is it just audio?
I just started video this week, but interestingly, so the first, I haven't posted the video episode yet, but I'm going to, of today's show. And then the last person that I recorded with, was like, can't be seen on camera. And so I just think it's funny. I'm already like encountering blocks to posting the videos, but I'm going to start because I finally broke down and got into a video editing software that I was trying to avoid dealing with. But I don't know, I'm just going to try to make my little YouTube channel do some stuff. So
nice. So I will be on video for you then.
Yes.
No stress. How do I sound to you? How's my audio quality?
Good. Everything's good.
Everything's good. Okay. Audio, video, we are good to go. And thank you for having me.
Yes. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. And thank you for, we had to move it, right? last week.
Yes.
It's been a
Uh-huh.
little crazy, so thank you for grace on that. So the 3 questions I always ask is, what's the duration?
Okay, so I need to get off at, I don't know what time it is there, but it's 12:11 here, so I have to get off at 12:58 because I have a client next.
Perfect. Yeah. So I have to the top of the hour as well. Okay. The second question is, who's your listener? What are they struggling with? What are they trying to achieve?
I really feel like most of my listeners are still really in periods of self-discovery. So still uncovering any like subconscious motivators that were toxic.
Nice.
So really just like where I was when I started this shit, which is still healing. When I started the show almost a year ago, I was coming out of a pretty severe mental health crisis, and all of the things that I have learned on this road, I just talk about a lot, and
Nice.
that's what resonates with people. And so it's mostly just, those mindset shifts that are really important. Really everything kind of leads back to our mindset. So
Yeah.
I think that's what I've been talking the most about in the last 5 months is mindset, because
Beautiful.
that's where we're all struggling, it seems.
And you did meet Kev, right? My
Yes.
business partner? Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yep.
awesome. I just, for context, I just wanted to make sure that I knew that because I think I saw something come through when I saw Kev, like a poster of him on your show.
Yeah. Just like
Okay.
last
It's a tough
week.
act to follow.
Do you really feel that way?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was like, come on.
No, I think he's great. I think he's great. But I'm playful with it. Last question is theme or through line, based on your understanding of me, for your listener, that you think would be best for me to stick to, a theme or a through line. Obviously, it's the Emotionally Unavailable podcast, so
yeah, I mean, why don't we just stick with like maybe what Kevin and I talked a lot about was just like how he got to where he is now. So
love it.
it's not like a lot of the emotional shifts and mindset shifts that you had.
Done.
Like, what's your story, man? I'm sorry, I'm having like a horrible allergy day and everything's wrecked. So
No stress. My voice, I'm gonna have to clear my throat a few times too. So just bear with me on that.
yeah, same. All right. So what's your deal, man? How did you get into what you're doing now? Like, I know there had to be if I were to guess that you, like the rest of us, had like pretty real themes of insecurity and self-worth issues, and
yeah,
maybe felt invisible.
Well, when you say felt invisible, there was a time in my life that was definitely that. I was in sort of preschool, kindergarten, middle school. I looked a lot like the Backstreet Boys did back then. I had a bowl cut, I had blonde hair, and I was very popular, quote unquote. And then I hit puberty really late. That's actually, for anyone on camera, I still, I'm 36, but I look 16. And so imagine what I looked like in high school. So when I was 14, I was a freshman in high school. That was the hardest year of my life because my stepfather had left and my sister had moved out, and it was sort of, so he took 90% of the income with him. So we went from sort of boats and ski trips.com bubble in Massachusetts, mid to late 90s type of thing, to I get free lunch at school now because our income is so low. And
that's tough.
When I was a freshman in high school, I felt invisible for sure. I was short. I was prepubescent. All the friends of mine, it felt like they were becoming men while I was still just a little boy. And my sister was one of the most popular girls, if not the most popular girl in the entire high school. She was a senior when I was a freshman.
Oh, that's tough.
So I was the kid who got the pity dances from her, beautiful girl friends and friends that are girls and that kind of thing. And so I went from really popular in middle school, sort of bowl cut Backstreet Boy, to completely invisible. And at that same time, I was dealing with my stepfather leaving. And that same time, too, that same year, my sister moved out. I mentioned that. My mom got in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, and we got ostracized from her side of the family, too.
Oh, God.
And the part of the story that I haven't shared yet, too, is so my birth father is John McCorkle. He passed away when I was 2 in a car when he was 28. So this is 1991. I'm 2.5. My sister's 6. My mom's 31. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. Stepfather comes into the picture from age 3 to 14. His name's Steve Lazarus. I take his last name around age 7. And again, I didn't know any of this at the time. This is in therapy. I've reflected and sort of rewatched the movie of my own life. But 2 years old, father passes away. Stepfather from 3 to 14. 14, I'm a freshman in high school. That was the hardest year of my life by far. Stepfather leaves. Mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, get ostracized from that side of the family. We don't really associate much with the McCorkles, my birth father's side, anymore because we were trying to be sort of the Lazaruses. And so that was just brutal. It was brutal. So he got the yacht and the apartment building. We got the house and the dog. And that was the hardest year ever because I looked into the future. No dad, no generational wealth, no trust fund. Like, we are screwed if I don't do something about it. So I had 2 trauma responses to that. So there's 4 trauma responses. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And I'm sure you're aware of that as you've done therapy and stuff. So fawn is you become this sort of social coward. I always use Good Will Hunting as kind of an example of that. He doesn't want to be abandoned, so he keeps friends as close as possible. And so I definitely developed some unconscious abandonment issues after my stepdad left. And kind of lost 3 families by the time I'm 14. So I was just, don't lose anyone else. Just fit in, chameleon, and just shrink yourself and make sure, you don't lose anyone else. So I'm playing not to lose instead of playing to win type of thing. But behind the scenes, not socially. So I became this sort of social coward. But in the real world behind the scenes, I mean, it was work harder, aim higher, get smarter. It was fight. I became this just super achiever guy who's like, I'm going to prove my worth. And so I got straight A's through all of high school. I went and got my computer engineering degree. I got my master's in business. And then it was corporate. And I graduated my bachelor's in 2012, my master's in 2013. And the economy was coming back after 2008. And I rose so freaking fast through all these different tech companies. And I was used to being a high school and college, sort of broke in high school and college. So I became a 1% global earner in my early 20s. Working for a company called Cognex, a bunch of different companies, but eventually Cognex. They sell industrial automation equipment into manufacturing facilities. So it's just been a weird journey. And I was externally extremely successful. I paid off $84,000 worth of debt in a single year, college debt. I had $150,000 in a Vanguard account, which just tech companies. And I was growing my wealth. And then I get in my car accident. 26, that was 10 years ago. And that was the pivotal moment where this is the second chance my dad never got. And it was not a fender bender. It was a pretty bad accident, head-on collision. Volkswagen, thank you so much, saved my life. I drove a little 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in cash. I used to call it the tank. And it saved my life totally. And that is when I found self-improvement. That's when I found personal growth. That's when I found personal development. And that's when I really started to understand self-worth as well as self-belief, as well as inner fulfillment. And that's when I flipped the script from externally successful and internally unfulfilled to start healing. And that's when I started focusing on internal fulfillment, happy, healthy, productive, fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, just this super achiever guy, but like from a wholesome place. And I hoped success would be a byproduct. And eventually, keyword is eventually, it was. And so now I'm 36 and we have a podcast called Next Level University, and we have an 18-person team, and we work with 105 podcasters and business owners, and it's become a whole thing. But 10 years ago, it was kind of my restart.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why I am so stuck on the principle of fawn, but it was really sneaky for me. Like I still find ways that maybe I'm fawning at something. And like, I remember feeling like it was a gift to be the chameleon that I was.
Same.
And like, I can fit in with anyone, I can be I would say like, I can be whoever the person in front of me wants me to be. So I was really proud of that. Didn't know that I was, doing any sort of fucked up shit with it, but I was. But I remember so I'm a therapist, and I remember as I was taking my licensure training, hearing the term reaction formation for the first time. And I was like, oh shit, I do that, where I'm so uncomfortable with how much I dislike a person that I now am kissing their ass because it the level of discomfort that I feel even with an internal confrontation, they don't know I don't like them, but like I really don't. So, but I'm
Yep.
kissing their ass because I'm so uncomfortable with the fact that I don't like them. Like I
Yep.
did shit like that all the time. And I still find sneaky ways where I'm like, wait, am I fawning? Like, I don't care about this person. What am I doing? Do you ever like identify still a struggle with that?
100%. And that was the base problem of my life, because there's two types of confidence, I believe, and there's two types of courage, and I'll make this as clear as possible. I think we all have to live in these sort of two worlds. The first one is the real world. That's who you are and what you are when no one's watching.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one that I actually think I'm good at. Then there's the social world. And I remember there was a friend of mine in college who said, Laz, everyone called me Laz in college. My last name's Lazarus. And they said, Laz, you are hands down the most popular kid on this campus. And I remember at the time thinking that was awesome. And I realize now that I was everything for everybody and nothing for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't mean to, but I was at every barbecue. I was part of every club. I was in a fraternity. I was the smart kid and the jock and on the intramural basketball team and. I just spread myself too thin and I fit in with too many people. And I was what is now I refer to as a wandering generality. There's a speaker called Zig Ziglar in the personal development space way years and years and years ago. And he said,
Zig Ziglar,
you know Zig? Okay, so he said you can be a wandering generality or you can become a meaningful specific. And so until 26, I was quite the wandering generality. I didn't really have a good idea of like who I really was and my essence and sticking to it. I was kind of a byproduct of whatever sort of social acceptance I was
whatever you were
looking
a
for.
part of.
Yeah. And so when you grow up in an environment where my mom and stepdad didn't get along, and I don't think my stepdad ever really wanted kids, and I think that on some unconscious level you seek approval. And so that there's two types of confidence. There's confidence in your ability to achieve something in the real world. That's called self-efficacy and self-belief. That's achievement confidence. I've always had that in very high amounts. I mean, all these awards on the wall and straight A's in high school and building a business. Like, I feel good at success as much as you're not allowed to say that. What I never felt good at was social interactions. And I got good at it through the chameleon thing that you talked about. But it wasn't me being the real me. It was me being what they needed, even people that were bullies, even people that kind of suck.
Yeah.
And so what I needed to develop in my later years, in my 30s especially, is understanding who I am and having social courage. So the most important skill for me is social courage. So social courage is setting and honoring clear boundaries. Social courage is, I'll give you an example. There was someone in my life who said, well, Alan, you know, these days, the only way to make money is in real estate. And I remember at the time I wasn't courageous enough. Yeah. Okay. First of all, not true. You ever
Not
heard
even.
the internet?
That's actually not even an easy way to make money anymore. But all right.
Well, it's so funny too, because I'm an engineer and my brain went, that's dumb as hell. But I didn't have the courage to share, hey, that's actually not true. I mean, tech companies, Google, right? All of the biggest companies on planet Earth are technology companies, right? And then the internet, all this stuff, esports. Okay. But the point is I didn't have the courage to actually say the truth. And so I think that all of us struggle either, number one, to be successful in terms of efficacy and structure and discipline and, you know, doing meaningful pursuits, or we all struggle socially. So for me, I was a social coward, even though I had a lot of courage in like achievement. I had a lot of cowardice in social environments, meaning I didn't have the courage to share what I actually think and what I actually believe. Right. Because I'm a hyper rational computer engineer who definitely has some intellectual gifts, and people around me were wildly irrational, but I didn't have the courage to call it out. I didn't have the courage to say, actually, that's kind of dumb and you're wrong. And the truth is you're being kind of a bully and that kind of thing. And have you ever considered that maybe you might be wrong and that you might be arrogant? And I didn't have any of that. I just let arrogant people be arrogant, and I let them mistreat me. And it wasn't until my late 20s and early 30s that I started to really see, like, you know, I'm surrounding myself with some really toxic people.
hmm You know, I've never thought about I like the way that you're putting the two types of courage because I was always so confused by what a fierce advocate I could be professionally. Like I would say I had moderate self-efficacy, which is like something my I am a therapist by way of a social work degree and license. So self-efficacy is something that we talked about a lot in college, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm decent because I had to train myself to believe that I could achieve certain things. And some of that was college. So I built self trust, whatever.
Nice.
But in my career, I could, because I was a social worker, and at that time I was a full time hospice social worker, and I got really good at that job. Like I was a fierce advocate for people. And
Nice.
I was surprised at myself because in my personal life, I let people say whatever the hell they wanted. I mean, I would go home and overthink it, and then maybe I wouldn't talk to them again, or, start a fight over something else or whatever immature thing I did to deal with it. But I didn't have any courage. Like, I wasn't going to call them out right there. The only place I really see this happening a little bit still for me is on this show. Not because I'm afraid to say, like, usually, like, I'm pretty open, I'm vulnerable, I'm really real and raw. But what I was just thinking to myself, like, last week was, I don't really challenge people when they say something that wildly contradicts with something that I feel or think. And
It's hard to
like,
do on a
it
public
is.
medium. It's hard to
Well,
do. Yeah.
yeah, especially because you're a guest. Like, I don't want to
Break rapport. Yep.
Yeah. And but like I also would like to challenge somebody's thinking if I'm noticing a pattern that they're not aware of, but then I'm like, is that my job? Like, like, should
Yeah.
I? And, all the things that you think. But I definitely struggled on both of those mediums to say the truth. Coming out of Chameleon Land didn't happen until the last few years, which started with, actually recognizing when someone was being a bully, and that the only way to counteract that is to step back up into their space and be like, what?
Yeah.
Do you want to try that again?
It's been actually really fascinating for me to witness how much bullies avoid people with self-worth.
Yep.
So as I've gained more self-worth, I'm thinking of one example of someone who reached out to me from my past, who I think in some ways was manipulative. And he said, hey, it's so-and-so, call me, threw their number in. And I haven't talked to this person in 13 years.
Right.
And I'm sitting there thinking, that's pretty entitled.
Yeah, like I just have the availability to just fucking pick up the phone
Right.
and call you right now because you told me to.
And because you told me to, so it's jump how high. And I think that he was testing to see if I'm still manipulatable. And so here's what I did. So I said, hey, you're in my thoughts often. Hope you're well. Just curious, what's this in reference to? Right. I'm a CEO. I've got an 18-person team. I'm not exactly hanging out, right? I don't have time to just call you. I haven't talked to you in 13 years. Hey, call me. Jump. How high? How high would you like me to jump? He said, on a plane. Never heard from him again. I know that I won't, because this is the type of person that is fearful. That was a test. It was a test to see if I'm still, this person knew me when I was 19 years old. And I was on their team. I worked for them. And this person was unconsciously testing whether or not I was still controllable. Because back when I was 19, of course I was, especially if you're my boss and you pay me. Yeah. And people when you have higher self-worth, it's very hard because the immediate feedback you get is usually, it seems negative. So for example, 10 years ago, high school friends and college friends and corporate friends. And I brought my high school friends to college and my college friends to corporate, and I was popular and I had parties and I loved, having fun and friends. And I remember I was like, how am I going to do? I'm going to be in the wedding party of like 11 weddings. How am I going to do all this? I was that chameleon. And now I'm not going to be in any wedding parties, because I over the last 10 years, I've really worked on myself. And I actually was naive enough. I really thought this. I'm not even kidding. I was like, okay. Because in the past, there were people that would mistreat me. We've all been mistreated. I thought, okay, well, I guess I'm kind of a shithead, so I get it. Okay, I'm not, and when I say shithead, I don't mean I'm a bad person. There are things I could work on, right? I used to drink too much and too often, tough childhood, blah blah blah. Like, yeah, okay, I'll work on it. I spent the last decade working on being a better man, and I eventually got to a point where it's like, wait a minute, all of those things that you were pointing out before, I've like worked on and fixed, and you're actually treating me worse, not better. I was actually naive enough. Seriously, this is comical in hindsight. I thought that when I became a better man, I would have more friends.
Mm-hmm.
I thought people would like me more.
Mm-hmm.
That is alarmingly not true.
Yeah.
Now, my life is better. My relationship is better. The home I live in is better. My business is better. My leadership is better. I'm more fulfilled. I'm more physically fit. I'm more well developed. But I'll tell you what, the people from my past, they are not reacting positively to that.
Yeah.
And that is the base problem. That has been the hardest part, in my opinion. I mean, when I first started my podcast and became you're a bodybuilder now, you're a podcaster now. Like, I got ripped a new one, and I was like, I'm trying to help kids. Like,
right? Like, what the fuck?
What is the problem here?
Yeah.
I cried. Like, it felt like I cried every other week for like 2 years straight, and you just realizing that no one really liked the real me. They loved the chameleon.
Yeah, they
and the
loved
comedian.
who you could be for them.
Oh, it's so brutal. That's the hardest part of this journey, in my opinion. Anyone who's on a growth journey, watching or listening, that by far is the hardest part, in my opinion. Now, again, my business partner, Kevin, he's been on your show. He thinks the hardest part is failing forward and not believing in himself and that kind of stuff. I have good self-belief. I'm not concerned about the self-efficacy. I feel like all that's fairly easy to me, and I know that's not the case for everyone. But when it comes socially, this has been atrociously bad. Like, whoa, alarm. I thought when I became a better person,
gets me more. So
say that
like,
again.
I don't care about the other shit. Like, I'm either going to be successful or I'm not. So like, I'm in a pretty good place with that. It's the social shit that will bog me down if I let it.
Well, you say emotionally unavailable podcast. The emotional social world. I mean, I really thought that being a better man would mean I was treated better. It has been wildly not true. And I guess
I've lost a lot of friends throughout my growth because I'm not who they needed me to be anymore.
Same. Yeah, that's been the hardest part. That's been by far the hard. I'm trying to heal that now. It is, it's not good.
And I think the hard part for me is realizing too, like, fuck, man, no wonder. Like, I really did surround myself with a lot of emotionally unavailable people because that's the pattern I was involved in my whole life. I was raised by a narcissist after a bunch of really extensive childhood trauma, and then just spent like early adulthood trying to get it right, but fucking up a lot. But once I got to this place where I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna get comfortable with telling people how I feel. And then the first time I do it is met with like, fuck you, kind of. I was like, what, hold up here. What I was saying was, granted, I've learned about my delivery as well. Yeah. And the more I learn about myself, the more I can understand why the nature of that reaction happens. But like, damn, dude, I was just saying it hurt my feelings a little bit. Like, I wasn't saying like you're a piece of shit or anything else that you clearly feel like I was saying. Thank you for that, fucking bomb that you just threw at me. And now you're just reconfirming I don't get to talk about my feelings. So.
I know, it is so brutal. I had one of my core values was candor. And I took that off real quick. No, I'm kidding. But the truth is, a lot of people are not ready to hear uncomfortable truths. I mean, I grew up around a lot of alcohol. Okay. I mean, I quit drinking 5 years ago, and I'm not projecting that onto anyone else, but I drank too much and too often. And this is something that I really hope can land. Of the people that I grew up with, I feel like I was less of an alcoholic than the majority of the people I spent time with, but yet I was the bar
that you were measuring it against was like, well, I'm doing all right.
Well, that's the problem. And then so I admitted, I had the admittance of like, okay, I got a problem here. And once you admit you have a problem, then you start working on solving it. I always say, why would you work on a problem you don't think you have, or you've convinced yourself you don't have? And so I quit drinking, and it took me a long time to quit. At weddings, I would fall off and all stuff. And again, it wasn't like I was a get wasted every day alcoholic. It wasn't that. It was just too much and too often. I was taking my fitness for granted. I was definitely taking my brain for granted. And I really wanted to be the healthiest version of myself. And so 5 years in, sober, and I realized, okay, looking back at my childhood, I have a therapist named Carol. We do this work together. And I'm sitting there going, I was actually the least alcoholic and I'm the one who changed. Now, here's the thing. The people who have the most shame about their own inadequacies and they don't believe that they can change them, they are very combative whenever you approach truth.
That's a great word. Yep.
They're very combative because their ego is so defensive when you try to say, hey, just maybe you have a problem. And it's alarming because the people who have the biggest problem are often the least inclined to take any feedback whatsoever.
Yeah, but it doesn't even take you saying you might have a problem. It can just be like, I identified within myself that I have a problem, and them being like, the fuck? Like,
yeah, no, you don't. What do you mean? You're not an
like,
alcoholic.
Exactly.
People have gotten angry at me.
You're no fun, or all the things that they start in on. Yes.
Wild, literally.
Yeah. Although I will say this, I did something very similar. So when my husband and I first started dating, I was really toxic, and we were both drinking far too much and whatever. And he had the thought before I did, like, maybe we should get our shit together a little bit. And I was like,
good for him.
I fucking flipped the fuck out. I was like, you can do whatever you want. I'm not there. So, and I mean, I just remember it was like a 10-minute, just like, I will never forget the look on his face where he was like, well, that's not at all how I thought that conversation was going to go. Because I was really into development too, but I was like, not my drinking though. That's my only coping mechanism. So what? But then once I made the shift and was like, oh yeah, like this is impacting me negatively a lot more often than positively. So yeah, we need to chill. Then we did that. But at first I was like, I remember the fear that I felt because I was like, are you asking me to give up a crutch? That I don't want to give that up,
Yeah.
But the words that came out were not vulnerable and raw like that. It was like, fucking, you're crazy or whatever,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We human beings react sometimes with a lot of ego when they're deeply scared and scarce. And what you're not saying is, well, I'm fearful of not having the crutch. I'm fearful of trying to give that up. I can't imagine, my future without this. This is who I am. Do you not accept me for who I am? All this stuff. And so all these insecurities just bubble up. And ultimately that's why, so I have this triad of transformation, and I took a fire protection course back in college at fire engineering, and it's heat, fuel, and oxygen that is required for fire. I think this is a really good metaphor. Humility, courage, and vulnerability are required for transformation. Humility, courage, and vulnerability. My car accident at 26, it collapsed my ego. It's what's referred to as an ego death. Anyone can sort of look this up. But basically, I have these 3 circles of the ego. The outer circle is who you want others to believe you are. The next circle in is who you want to believe you are. And then the next circle in is who you really are. And it collapsed all those circles when I got in that car accident. Because when you face mortality or death of a pet or death of a loved one, you it just humbles the hell out of you.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you can grow again from this new place, sort of the Phoenix metaphor, burn down, rise anew. And I totally rose anew. And my new goal in life is to keep those 3 circles the same, which means I have to constantly look at, where am I inadequate? Where am I inaccurate? Where am I messing up? Where am I not a good partner? Where am I not fit? Where am I, where are my habits off? Where are my metrics off? Where are my priorities? Where am I not being a good CEO? One of my main priorities in life is to not be a toxic CEO. I have an 18-person team. We got to get our shit together. But I don't want to be toxic.
Yeah.
I have to be frustrated, and I have to hold a standard, and I have to express frustration in order for us to grow and reach our potential. But how do I do that in a way that isn't toxic, that isn't entitled? And so I'm trying really hard to be all I can be. And yes, hold people to a standard that's necessary for us to achieve our mutual goals, but also not project my own shit onto people. And that's a full-time job right there. It's very difficult. Like, I get it. I understand why a lot of these CEOs are seen as toxic, because it's very hard to get people to get shit done and be nicey nice all the time.
Right.
But the inner work and the inner healing and the inner acceptance of both the good, the bad, and the ugly allows you to grow from an authentic place. And ultimately, I think humility, courage, or vulnerability is usually one of those three. Emilia and I, we, my girlfriend and future wife, we have a podcast called the Conscious Couples Podcast, and we coach relationships. We've coached intimate couples for 4 years. Some of them married for 13 years, some of them brand new, some of them honeymoon phase, some of them power struggle phase, some of them, later on.
Yeah.
Commitment stage. I've learned more. I'm telling you this right now. This is one little side tangent. It's always humility, courage, or vulnerability as the crutch. So I think of an infinity symbol with both partners and a triangle inside of it, each side of the infinity symbol, courage, humility, courage, and vulnerability. There's always a red X in one of the partners. So usually one partner is not being courageous enough to express hard truths. Obviously, your husband was trying to express a hard truth. Right. And say, hey, we should probably consider, working on our drinking. And you just, no humility, were like, rah.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And no vulnerability. And so that could have really been a bad thing. And I'm curious as to how that ended up working out. But obviously, you've worked on it.
Yeah, that was like 2010. Yeah, no, I think if he had known I was going to react that way, he just wouldn't have said it. But just organically, because I met him. Listen, Alan, okay, I was the epitome of toxic. Okay, like I was a fucking psycho. So I went through the divorce crazies, which just means you do a lot of dumb shit. Okay, a lot of dumb shit. Okay. And then met him at a time where I hadn't learned a damn thing about where I had already gone wrong and what I needed to do different in the future. But he was avoidant and I was anxious. So I entered the runner chaser dynamic with him right away. The movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days should have been written about me because I was her exactly. And she was pretending that I was not. And so there was a lot.
Do you guys still have your love fern?
Oh God. You know what's the most embarrassing?
I love that movie.
Emilia and I. Nickname I gave him. She gave her dude a nickname. I was calling this boy Muffin. Muffin. Don't ask. Never in my life have I said that fucking word, nor am I cute. Like I'm not cute. Like I'm not sweet like that. So like I'm all. Don't fucking ask me why I did that. And I was like, oh shit. The first time I saw that movie, I was like, oh my God, attacked. So like there was so much toxicity, and it was not until this last year, really since my podcast, like coming out of the mental health crisis and then just getting my whole life thrown upside down. That was the thing that helped us the most, because as I was unraveling all the wounding that I had ignored my whole life, he could hear me talk about it here and understand, like, I'm learning in real time that everything I've ever blamed you for was my fucking fault. And that I understand all of the things that I have done to damage our relationship, but also to create an atmosphere of unsafety for you to be vulnerable, like all of these things. So it's really just in the last year that like we have such a solid relationship, but all the other years were just me being like, I just don't know what's going on here. I'm pretty perfect and this isn't going very well. So, but I mean, that's why my show is called Emotionally Unavailable, because once I discovered that that's what I was, because it was an actual discovery, like I had no idea, because I could trauma dump with people and trauma bond and be love bombed and be a part of that. I mean, I could do all kinds of shit that I felt like was sharing, but like It wasn't until my friend was like, yeah, but like the way you retell your trauma. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Because comedians, like I'm a comedian, like that's what they do. Like we just fucking tell our shit in a funny way. What are you talking about? So as I started to discover all the ways that I was emotionally unavailable and like, oh shit, y'all do this too. Fuck you guys. You guys are all emotionally unavailable.
I have an interesting question for you. One thing I want to share with you too, that movie, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. So Emilia and I, we're coming up on 3.5, maybe 4 years of doing a monthly event. It's called Relationship Talks Events. They're free. They're virtual every month. And one of them, we did that movie. Literally, we shared clips, love Fern, like all what not to do in relationships. So that's just a little side tangent real quick. It was awesome.
You have been, okay, this makes me so happy because you mentioned Good Will Hunting, which I think of all the fucking time. And I'll even be like, oh my God, that sounds like Good Will Hunting. And people are like, what? And I'm like, that movie was so good. How can you say that? And then also, a lot of people don't know about this movie. So look at us.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and Good Will Hunting are both magnificent in their own way. Magnificent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, especially Good Will Hunting. But anyways, so one of the questions I wanted to ask you, and this is something that I've thought about for years, because the environment I grew up in, there were certain comedians that we thought were really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And now I look back on those same skits, and some of them I've got memorized, and they are still funny, but they're also kind of toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think about the overall mental health of the comedian profession in general?
Oh God, you know what I'm gonna say. I mean, it's hard for me to watch now because I know what all the underlying toxic bullshit is like driving this humor. I think most comedians, like I even had one on the show who was very upfront and honest about like, this is the way I'm willing to process my shit is by sharing it through this medium, but in a detached way. And I think that's anybody who can talk about, excuse me, real life shit in that detached manner isn't anywhere near where they need to be in the development of their emotions.
Well, here's the thing too, because the real world and the social world, the disconnect between those, because in the social world, that's how the economy works. When I was really successful in corporate, I worked in a company with mostly male engineers. I think there was I don't know, maybe 500 sales engineers, and I think only 2 females in the whole thing. And that's a sign too, right, of some emotional immaturity. I think women tend to be more emotionally mature. Obviously, not always, but that tends to be the statistics. I think they are encouraged to go inward, and they don't need to be gassed on. And I'm so strong.
Right.
But one of the things that I found fascinating is that one of the reasons I was so successful in corporate is because I was fun and funny and a chameleon. And so, but I also was smart.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you're not allowed to say any good things about yourself, so forgive me for saying that I'm smart.
Right.
But I that's just the truth, and I'm committed to truth, candor. But when I became emotionally mature, it was harder for me to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so much harder for me to fit in because you see how messed up a lot of this stuff is. I mean, I look back at my childhood, right? And it's like, oh my God, like that was fucking terrible. And that was normal.
Yeah.
You know, quote unquote normal.
It was your average nuclear family.
Whoa. But you don't know that at the time. I use this metaphor. Hopefully this will land for people. Emilia and I, we grew up in very different environments, and we both came from nothing. So I think we have that in common. We earned our way. But her family, her parents, they never fought. And they still don't. They have a wonderful relationship, statistically speaking. And they never fought in front of the kids. And I grew up with my mom and stepdad, and I mean, whoa. Yeah. And let's just, a polite way to put it is they didn't get along. But anyways, so we have different Richter scales. It's like if I'm born in California and a level 6 earthquake happens on the Richter scale, I'm not even going to notice because I was born here. I was in Massachusetts. But if a level 6 earthquake happens in Massachusetts, I mean, everyone's gonna freak out. It's like when in South Carolina it snowed this past winter and everyone's losing their minds, and up in New England we're up here laughing like that's just a Tuesday.
You got 2 inches.
Well, that's the thing, right? Exactly. So, but in a relationship, Emilia and I, when we've never fought in 5 years, which I thought was impossible. I know that sounds impossible. It sounded impossible to me too. She said, "Well, Alan, we're never gonna fight," and I was like, "We're gonna be together forever. Like, obviously, we're gonna have to fight." But that's where I came from. She said, "No, when you fight, there's a winner and a loser, and when you fight, no one really wins." And I'm not kidding. I had trouble believing that was even possible. And we've had our tough moments. It's been together for 5 years, been living together for 3.5, but we've never fought. No slamming the door, no leaving the room, nothing. And I never even thought that was possible. Where I came from, that was normal.
That's almost how you showed love, was fighting. Yeah.
Wild. And so every time I start getting my octaves up, she goes, "Alan." And I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm gonna take a minute. I'm gonna sit on the floor, right? I'm not gonna, dominate here. I'm just gonna sit. We're gonna have a conversation. Take a minute. So we've never fought. Crazy, but the point that I'm making is you realize that these Richter scales are completely different. So if your partner, like mine, grew up around no earthquakes in this metaphor, even you're level 3 on the Richter scale. Right, I brought her to a family gathering early on.
Oh God!
Right. Yeah, and she afterwards, she's like, "I can never do that again." And I'm
like, my nervous system is fucking dysregulated.
and I'm sitting there going, "What do you mean? They
were on their best behavior."
Yeah, that was the best they've ever been, right? But that's the thing, right? So your normal is not necessarily normal, and it's very important for you and your partner to identify, not you, but the collective you.
Yes.
To identify your different Richter scales. If I grew up around level 10 earthquakes all the time, I'm not going to notice a 2. And one playful thing I'll share is Emilia, one time we're heading to the gym and she said, "I'm so sorry. I mistreated you so much earlier." I was driving. I'm like,
"What?"
I said, "Sweetheart, you could probably punch me in the face. I might not even notice," right? Where I came from. And I was being playful. But she said, "No, but Alan, you're not going to notice being mistreated because you're so used to being so mistreated." And I know this is resonating with anyone who grew up rough, high ACE score, adverse childhood experiences. If you have a high ACE score, your Richter scale's off. You don't even know what it's like to be treated well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have the highest ACE score that you can get. And I remember, I've talked about this a couple times, but I remember how profound it felt to interact with somebody who was very kind to me. Like maybe a lady at the grocery store did something really nice and spoke softly to me and just was kind. Like I can remember going home and being like, "I met the nicest person today." And even like my mom, who my parents are both dead now, but who was her own brand of toxic, let's not play, and was an addict. But I remember her saying to me, like, "It makes me so sad how impactful it is to you when somebody's nice, because like obviously you haven't received a lot of kindness in your life if a stranger being fucking nice to you." And that was the thing, is I really did attract a lot of bullies too, like because I wasn't going to say shit to them.
They can sense low self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Bullies can sense low self-worth. I'm telling you right now. There's a lot of science behind that.
And they do little shit like that dude who sent you that message. Yeah, they put their little seeds in. They're like, "Oh, that sprouted. Okay."
Yep, that's exactly.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I've wanted to ask you this since we talked about what you said, and we got to go soon. When he sent you that message, was there any part of you on instinct that was like, "Shit, I got to call him"?
Of course.
Like initially,
of course.
Yeah.
It took everything in me to override that programming and to go, "Wait a minute,
I ain't gotta call you bitch."
Yeah. Well, it's literally like, "Hey, it's so and so. Call me with your number." It's like, how entitled is that?
Right.
Here's the thing: when you grow up around high entitlement, you also won't notice.
Right.
You won't notice. It's very. I mean, I'm a coach,
it's
right?
Normal.
So it's your normal. I coach 20 individuals. We work with 105 podcasters and business owners at this stage. And I'm coming up on my 10,000 hours of coaching, training, and podcasting. And it's been so transformative because I've learned from people all over the world the behind the scenes and the front of the scenes. And I do goals, priorities, metrics, habits, skills, and identity. So once your goals, priorities, metrics, habits, and skills are in alignment, you realize why you're not doing them. You just don't end up doing them, and we track. And then it's okay, let's go in here. Why aren't you doing it? The old me would have called him immediately. 100%. I always say this: if you want a coach, you probably need a therapist. That was me. If you want a therapist, you need to go get a coach or a mentor. Like, success matters too, right? And so if you want to be both successfully externally and fulfilled internally, you're going to want coaching and mentoring, coaching and therapy, right? We both do both, but therapists are more focused on the inner world. Coaches are more focused on external achievement, but they're both connected and they're both necessary. So I appreciate how honest and raw you've been on this. I appreciate, obviously, you came from a challenging place, and I feel kindred spirit in you in that, because holy hell. But we are trying to make something great out of that. And that's, I think, what I would end with, which is, it wasn't my fault my dad died at 2. It wasn't my fault my stepdad left. It wasn't my fault my mom and stepdad did not get along. But it is my responsibility to build a life out of that. And there's a lot of people I grew up with who grew up very tough too. And, they didn't fare so well. And I'm very grateful to be where I am and to be who I am. And I think personal development, personal growth, self-improvement, and mental health are the key ingredients to a fulfilling life. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would add, personal development is professional development.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad I have you on, and I'll just look at your profile for all your links and shit, and I'll let you go from there.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing in the world and spreading all the good stuff.
Thank you. Have a wonderful Wednesday.
You as well.
Bye.
Emotionally unavailable.
Hey, make sure you've given the show a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to if you haven't already. And check out my website, empoweredwithmelissahepner.org, or my link tree on Instagram at melissa.hepner to check out my latest offers or workshops.
Emotionally unavailable.
INDEPE and cut.